Carnivore diet for scleroderma. Does it actually work, and what's the secret to getting the best results? In this diet, we'll take you through everything you need to know about carnivore diet for scleroderma and how it compares to other diets out there. We'll also talk about common pitfalls and how to track your improvements along the way. Hi, I'm Dr. Dasari, a surgeon dedicated to reducing inflammation caused by gut microbiome imbalances. I myself struggled with digestive dysfunction and autoimmune inflammation in my early 20s and successfully put together a methodology that worked not only in me but also in my patients. My method is called the Mind-Gut Immunity Approach and has resulted in thousands of successes over the years. If you or someone you know struggles with scleroderma and wants to rid themselves of inflammation for good, check out our website, mgiclinic.com, and schedule a discovery call with me. I'll walk you through some very practical steps for scleroderma recovery and how to achieve lasting results in just 6 weeks. Okay, let's get started. There are studies supporting the use of carnivore diets for managing scleroderma, but there's also plenty of research showing the other side, some even suggesting a connection between the carnivore diet and the development of scleroderma. So with all this conflicting evidence, how do we figure out what really works for scleroderma? As I've mentioned in my previous video, Ideal Diet for Scleroderma, I'm a big supporter of creating customized phytonutrient-based diets, and I use 4 key criteria for figuring out if a diet will work for someone with scleroderma. Let's review those 4 criteria. Number 1 is phytonutrients, number 2 is macronutrient requirements, number 3 is microbiome specificity, and number 4 is food sensitivity. If you want a more in-depth look, check out the Ideal Diet for Scleroderma video, and I'll also provide some quick summaries here. Now, let's see how the carnivore diet compares to other diets like the Phyto-diet that I usually recommend for scleroderma. Just to review, harmful bacteria and fungus in your intestine ferment carbs like sugar, starches, and fiber, which leads to bloating, gas, and connective tissue skin inflammation. The only reason why the carnivore diet sometimes works for scleroderma is because it completely removes the carbohydrates from this equation, decreasing the source of inflammation. The carnivore diet for scleroderma focuses entirely on animal-based foods, cutting out all fiber and carbohydrates while incorporating electrolytes for balance. By eliminating all carbohydrates including fiber, sugars, starches, and lactose, the carnivore diet for scleroderma stops feeding harmful gut bacteria and fungus. Unlike keto or low-carb diets, which can still allow some carbs, the carnivore diet for scleroderma removes them completely, providing calories solely from fats and proteins. This is why it's often used as a short-term strategy, particularly during flare-ups or when other diets don't seem to be working or effective for managing scleroderma symptoms. However, remember those 4 criteria I mentioned? Let's see how the carnivore diet holds up over time. While removing carbs can help scleroderma in the short term, it doesn't necessarily guarantee a healthy gut microbiome balance will be restored, and I'll explain more about that in just a bit. Let's talk about the first criteria, which is phytonutrients. Phytonutrients are micronutrients found in plant-based superfoods, and they're loaded with antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds that are essential for managing conditions like scleroderma, where inflammation plays a major role. This 2024 study analyzed the potential benefits of curcumin, a natural compound found in turmeric, for treating connective tissue disorders, skin diseases, and emphasizing its well-known anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and antimicrobial properties. And here's a 2023 study that explored the impact of resveratrol, a natural polyphenol, on scleroderma, revealing its ability to reduce fibrosis and inflammation and highlighting its potential as a treatment option. Phytonutrients fall into several key categories, including polyphenols, terpenes, thiocyanates, fiber, resistant starches, omega fats, and alkaloids. They help reduce inflammation throughout the body, starting with the gut, which is key when managing autoimmune conditions like scleroderma. If you're following a strict carnivore diet, however, you won't be getting these essential phytonutrients. But one way to sneak them into the diet without adding carbs or sugar is through herbal teas. Herbal teas can give you the phytonutrients you need without disrupting the carnivore diet for scleroderma. Other diets like paleo, keto, and low carb still allow for phytonutrients. So if those are important to you, they're worth considering. Just know that a strict carnivore diet doesn't provide phytonutrients, which means you're missing out on their anti-inflammatory benefits for scleroderma. Next, let's look at macronutrient requirements. The carnivore diet for scleroderma meets the body's macronutrient requirements pretty well. Macronutrients include carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. You can estimate your personal requirements by entering your height, weight, and activity level into the calculator on my website. If you follow the carnivore diet for scleroderma, you'll need to adjust these values by increasing fats and proteins while decreasing carbohydrates. In general, a diet that gets half of its calories from fat is normally a good thing. Although I don't particularly like the saturated fats in meats, which are associated with certain inflammatory processes in Scleroderma. I also don't like the animal-based cholesterol in the meat, which can allow for increases in arachidonic acid in the body. I describe both of these pathways of Scleroderma-related inflammation in some of my other videos on my channel, so if you need a refresher, feel free to look at some of these videos. When I design Scleroderma diets for my clients, they're generally lower in carbs anyways for obvious reasons, and most of the fats come from plant-based omega sources, so you don't have these problems. From a macronutrient perspective, the carnivore diet can meet your needs for Scleroderma, but the saturated fats and cholesterol might need to be managed. Next, let's take a look at microbiome specificity. Let's go back to this equation. Bad bacteria and fungus feed on carbs, which leads to inflammation. The carnivore diet removes carbs, but does it actually promote the growth of good bacteria in patients with Scleroderma? The answer is a strong no. I know that there are people on YouTube who argue that the gut microbiome diversity is actually good in those people following the carnivore diet. There are even Reddit threads dedicated to this in-depth topic, but from my practical experience, after reviewing hundreds, if not thousands of stool studies, I have never seen a healthy, functional microbiome in someone following the carnivore diet with Scleroderma. Scleroderma-related inflammation often stems from the gut microbiome dysfunction, and that's why when people enroll in our program, we start with a patented probiotic from Japan, which will recalibrate the microbiome and flush out the harmful bacteria. So then how do we promote the growth of the good bacteria? It's not by avoiding carbs. It's by carefully selecting specific phytonutrients. And that's where the Mind-Gut Immunity method excels. We designed the diet to encourage beneficial bacteria to form a protective biofilm that pushes out the bad bacteria and fungi. And as these good bacteria grow, the body produces fewer pro-inflammatory markers like TNF-alpha and interleukin-6. The main problem with the carnivore diet for Scleroderma is that it ignores the root cause. So when you're temporarily avoiding carbs, which means not feeding the bad bacteria, the moment you reintroduce carbs, fiber, or sugars, your symptoms will flare up again. And I've seen this happen countless times. People fail the carnivore diet because it's simply not sustainable. When they reintroduce carbs, their Scleroderma symptoms just return because the gut microbiome dysfunction was never truly addressed. In contrast, the Phyto-diet for Scleroderma works by fixing the underlying microbiome issues associated with Scleroderma. This means long-term, you'll have more dietary flexibility and even be able to cheat on your diet without triggering Scleroderma symptoms. I typically teach my clients how to incorporate cheat meals by the second or third month of the program because by that time, we've mostly resolved the gut issues in a lasting way. While the carnivore diet can help during Scleroderma flare-ups, it's not a sustainable long-term solution when compared to other phyto diets that we create. Over the years, I've spoken to many people during discovery calls who've tried the carnivore diet for Scleroderma. Many of them say the same thing. They got temporary relief, but as soon as they reintroduced carbs, their symptoms came right back. And this story I hear very often. My hope is that this review helps you figure out whether the carnivore diet is right for you. While it can help in the short term for Scleroderma, the key to lasting relief is addressing the gut microbiome dysfunction. Okay, now let's move on to the final criteria, food sensitivities. Food sensitivities are often a hot topic when it comes to managing Scleroderma. In my other videos, I discuss 4 key sensitivity tests that are available: the skin prick test, the IgE blood test, the IgG4 blood test, and the newer mediator release blood test. If you need a refresher on these tests, you can check out my other video on food sensitivity testing for Scleroderma. Now, regarding the carnivore diet in the context of Scleroderma, we have this concept of complex proteins, something I've discussed in previous presentations. When you consume large amounts of protein, it's broken down by enzymes in the stomach and upper intestines called proteases. These enzymes break the proteins down into individual amino acids, which are then absorbed into the bloodstream. However, sometimes the proteins don't fully break down and instead form these small peptide chains, which can often lead to inflammation. This tends to happen with various types of complex proteins, particularly those derived from animals. That means there's a significant risk for developing sensitivities to one or more types of meat or even eggs. And that's why the carnivore diet can be a risky option for Scleroderma. It limits your food choices and increases the likelihood of sensitivities. All right, that's my talk. In the comments below, tell me your experience with Scleroderma, with carnivore diets, and what's worked for you and what didn't. I'm curious to hear about your experiences. As you know, I've had great success using the Mind-Gut Immunity method in my clients, and I'm a strong supporter of customized phyto diets for Scleroderma and focused gut microbiome recalibration for our clients to achieve lasting success. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content such as this. As always, this is Dr. Chanu Dasari with the Mind Gut Immunity Clinic, and I'll see you next time.